What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more PGA DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for the PGA Championship, the second major of the season down at Quail Hollow. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. I'm a professional PGA DFS player. I have a six-figure PGA DFS GPP win under my belt, and I'm a qualifier for the 2025 Fantasy Golf World Championship on DraftKings. And I'm joined by Niromada, who is a fellow six-figure PGA DFS GPP winner, knows more than I could ever possibly think to know about golf, and he's our PGA DFS analyst at Occupy Fantasy. Niro, happy major week. How are you?
Yeah, man, one of the four best weeks of the year to play PGA DFS. So I'm excited. Good course, a course that we actually have course history at, which we don't always get for PGA or for majors, we'll say, outside the Masters. Obviously, very quality field, so should be great. Huge contests all over the place. Let's go get some.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do in this video, first of all, we're going to start with the top plays in our Occupy model. What is the data telling us? Who are the top plays we should be putting into our PGA DFS lineups? We'll get to the picks right off the bat. Top 10 plays in our model for the PGA Championship. We'll look at industry projections and to see what the industry is telling us and who sharper PGA DFS players will be playing in their contests, which means these guys will be higher owned in the high dollar GPPs and smaller field GPPs. And for those of you playing in those contests less than $3, you can just use these players as the best types of plays in your own lineups. Then move on to the early market movers. What are the betting markets telling us? Now, we are recording this Monday, which is a day earlier than we normally record it, but we do have some early market analysis to take note of, so stick around for that. We'll see if there are any weather or showdown related notes for our lineups, again, this early in the week. And new for this particular episode of the show, we got some people asking about this. So what we're going to do, we're going to build a dummy lineup at the end of the show. If we were building, Niromada and I were hand building a single entry lineup on DraftKings for a GPP, how would we build that? And we'll do that at the very end of this show. So Niro, let's tune into the model and look at the top 10 plays this week for the PGA Championship. Just really quickly, before we do, we have similar to the Masters pricing where we have golfers priced down in the $5,000 range. Now, if you remember sorry, that was for the Players Championship, right? And the Masters had 6K golfers. Either way, we had one
Correct.
major like this, and it does change the lineup construction a little bit.
It does, and we had multiple tournaments like this last year where they seem to be a little bit more aggressive with this strategy. Here's my question to you: why does DK do this? So, well, my thought is they seem to only be doing it on big weeks. So does that mean is it because there's more casual players and therefore it is easier with this pricing scheme to get more big name players in your lineup? Like you still have to sacrifice down into the 5K range instead of into the 6K range. But is that the reason why it makes it easier for I mean genuine question. You're the professional here. I'm just a amateur professional. So I'd be curious why you think they do this and bust it out for like big tournaments in the majors.
I think that is the case, and I think primarily it is to be able to get the top guys into your lineup and maybe an extra top guy into your lineup. Find it easier to fit in guys like Scheffler or Rory or Bryson or whoever your favorite golfer may be for casual players, because the alternative is, and we still see this in other majors, is that we have actually good golfers who are way underpriced, and we call that the soft pricing, right? And we say you can fit as many of these guys as you want, and maybe in DraftKings eyes, that's not nearly as important as getting as many of the golfers you may recognize into your lineup, as opposed to how can casual players get the best golfer into their lineup. And I think this probably is one of the best ways to accomplish that.
Right. Okay, that makes sense to me. Thank you.
So now that we have that, and now that we're looking to win GPPs with it, is anything change in your mind as you're building lineups? Obviously, as we use our lineup builder, that'll do all the heavy lifting for us. But if we're building by hand or we're just looking at this, what does it mean when we have 5K golfers into the lineups?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that we see in these weeks, like you alluded to, is we do see a little bit more ownership at the very top end of the price range, and you see very few lineups that are unwilling to include at least one of the like top five price golfers, let's say. And obviously, that is the mathematically optimal way to build lineups this week. Um, But unsurprising to people who play a lot of DFS, mathematically optimal is not the way to win massively large contests like we have this week. Well, it can't. Let's be clear, it can be, but it's the easier path to victory to zig some of that while everyone else is zagging. So I think for me, what it means is I will employ a little bit more of the leveraged, balanced building style in my large field GPP entries, where I shave off some of the players off the top end of the price range and try and jam in as many of those as like those soft plays that we like to talk about, like in the 8Ks and the low 9Ks that can not always, but can get ignored in a week like this, while everyone grabs the 12s, the 11s, the 13s, and then jumps down into the 6s and 5s to fill out the rest of their lineups.
If you're playing bingo with our show, you can go ahead and cross off. Niromada mentions a balanced build. That's probably the free square, honestly. So if you're playing
Should
along,
be.
that is you can check that off on your bingo card. So now, Nero, let's look at the top three and how they rank in our model. The big three. I think if you see a consensus out there, and betting odds will tell us this as well, that the most likely guys to win this tournament and the guys we should focus our attention on the most are Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau. All obviously have their merits. And if we look at the model, Scotty is first in our model, Bryson is second, and Rory drops down to 10th. And I will say Rory has the putting regression tag in our model, which means he's been putting in some areas on the green better than he should be. And maybe that's a skill, but generally that regresses to the mean for all golfers of all skill levels. But how are you approaching this big three, Scheffler, Rory, Bryson, in your lineup sets?
When I look at it, first of all, I see Scotty over 100 in the model, and I'd never like being under anytime the model identifies someone with a over 100 score. I will probably be a little bit lower though on Scotty this week. It's very telling to me that even though he won by a million in his last start and stomped all over my bankroll in doing so, he's never played. He chose to never play professional events here at Quail Hollow, where we used to have the Wells Fargo, which will now be changed to the Truist Championship going forward. And I know that's partially because he prioritized the Texas swing. That's where he's from. Um, but I don't think this is a course that completely fits him, to a T, and that's why you didn't see him playing here very often. The flip side of that would be it does fit Bryson and Rory to a T. So, not surprised to see Bryson up at the top of the model. A little surprised to see Rory down 10th, but I think the putting regression explains that partially. Bombers Golf Course, 7,600 yards, rain today, probably some more rain Wednesday. It's going to be soft. It's going to be extremely long. The rough is very thick. So all the high club head speed guys really come to the fore. So yeah, I think if you just give me my instant thought, it'd be over on Bryson and Rory and under on Scotty. And be clear for all the listeners, anytime I say under on Scotty, Scotty usually wins by 10 plus. So
Yeah, that's another mark on the bingo card for sure. So we
yes.
got the big three there. Next in our model, number three overall in our model is Shane Lowry, who contended late into Sunday at the most recent event and has been near the top of our model basically every event so far this year. Nero, can he get it done in a major? Now we would think maybe the Open is a major Shane would contend that, but again, he's been playing really, really good golf.
Yeah, great golf. His second last week, as you mentioned. It's got another eighth and a seventh and another second. That's four top eight finishes this year alone on the PGA Tour. Very good. He shows up really well in the longer iron shots, which you're going to have quite a bit of those this week, and very good in the ball striking stats, which is why he's playing so wonderfully. I think he'd probably prefer it to be firmer and faster. And it's might maybe firm out by Sunday, but I definitely think the first part of this event is going to be slower and softer for the golf course. So I don't think that totally fits into him very well. And he's played here a number of times, but no finishes higher than 34th.
So there's some subjective data to maybe consider when playing Shane Lowry in your lineups. Next, we reach the live portion of the show with Joaquin Neiman and John Rahm. And both are disappointed in recent majors. Neiman and Rahm Nero, how are we approaching the live guys in general? Obviously, we talked about Bryson already, but he's been one of the sole live guys to really play well at majors in the past couple of years. But Neiman and Rom, the next best guys of the group, and the model sees them appropriately. What are your thoughts on them heading into this event?
Yeah. So first, let's talk about likely why they're up there in the model. So long iron play, especially for Neiman, and then both of them rank very well in the birdies, and then bogey avoidance. So like avoiding bogeys and making birdies. You get to a major, courses should be a little bit tougher. Those stats become a little bit more important. So, I think generally speaking, I've been over most of the majors since
Yeah.
we've had the PGA Tour live split. I mean, you can keep me honest here, Brian, but I feel like most of the plugs I've written during those times have been generally over on the live guys because they tend to be under owned. And not all of them clearly, but a lot of them have continued to, perform very well in majors during that time and win some of those events. So now Rom would be like Scheffler in that he has played here more than Scotty, but doesn't seem to like it. Has some quotes out there that he's not a huge fan. And I don't think he really likes the greens that well. So he played here twice, 2021, missed the cut, and 2017 made the cut but finished 58th. So again, I know he's been on live for the last few years, but telling that he didn't come here very often when he had the chance or the choice to do so. I'll be higher on Neiman. So if, like I said, if I had a quick guess, I'd be over on Neiman and under on Rom uh, for this week.
Next in the model is very surprising, but not if you've been a member of OccupyFantasy.com or you've been following the events. It's Michael Kim, who has played really great golf for most of the year, has faded a little bit recently. But Nero, I have to think, obviously the model is not taking this into account, but he withdrew with a back injury on Saturday from the Truist. He's trying to get his back fully right. And again, he's very transparent on Twitter and was getting therapy this morning as he was doing a Q&A on Twitter. So obviously this is the type of guy, and Nero, I think a great comparison, and not it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I think a couple of weeks ago Carson Young was really high in our model, and he was super low owned, and those types of guys, and maybe if you want to talk about Michael Kim, you can, but maybe we can talk about how we would approach these types of guys in our lineups. Are we going to play them in a single entry? Probably not. Remember, the model is built for high risk contests, but I would say that these types of guys we're building into our 20 max lineups and our 150 max lineups. And if they're 1 to 5% owned, we're only playing 10, 15, maybe 20%, not guys we're really super heavily investing in.
That's right. And the beauty of that is at 12% Michael Kim, you might have 3x the field. So in theory, you are heavily invested in Michael Kim relative to the field, but he's still not taking up a significant portion of your player pool. So, first of all, he's ranking high in the model because he's so good this year in all of his ball striking metrics, and he's such a well-rounded player that it's no surprise to see him up near the top of the model. He also, in a more subjective way, has a seventh place finisher. He was seventh here in 2023, which shows you that there is some room here for the non-bombers to compete if they have a great week with their irons and they're really good with their putter. Um, but I would say for him, you need to stay tuned to his Twitter this week because he'll tell you how he's feeling. And if he feels like he's kind of over that back injury, he'll let you know. So I'll be definitely paying attention to him. And if he is, then yes, I will want to get over the field on him. And like we said, you probably don't need a ton to get 2 to 3 times the amount that the field has on him. You don't need to do anything ridiculous and have 50% Michael Kim or anything like that. No need for that whatsoever in PGA DFS. Just get, that 10, 12, 15%, whatever, get your 2, 3, 4x the field and off you go.
Yeah, exactly. And a follow-up question for you, Nero, because you said he's been well-rounded in all areas. Would you prefer taking shots on guys who maybe spike in one or two of the key metrics we're looking at this week? Distance, long irons, around the green, putting on these types of greens, whatever it may be. Or would you prefer guys who are well-rounded for a major test?
I mean, I think generally I'd prefer the well-rounded because majors tend to test more of your game. It's a more thorough more complete examination, if you will. However, this week, because the course is so biased to distance, I will take shots on players who have a standalone skill, where being longer than everyone else is the main attribute that they possess. But like I said, Michael Kim shows that there is room for players outside of that this week. So, in my preference order there, I would say the well-rounded guys first, but I will make exceptions for the distance spikers this week.
Nice. Love to hear that. And finally, closing out the top 10 of the model, Justin Thomas, who won a few weeks ago at the RBC, and Keith Mitchell, who Nero may be 100% owned in round one showdown this week.
Oh, that was a victory lap on Twitter for a lot of professional bettors and content providers to have Keith up near the top again after round one. Just crazy stuff for him, how good he's been in round one this year, and then how he's kind of faded since then. So first of all, JT obviously playing great, second and first. So his last four starts: second, first, 36th, second.
Yeah, that's good.
Those are his last four starts on PGA Tour. I think that might be pretty good. And then he's got 21st and 14th, and then 26th in his last few starts at the Wells Fargo. And then so like he plays the course well. It's a good stylistic fit for him as well. And again, just very good top, well-rounded play, especially this year. And he gets a little bit of bump because these greens are slopey and tricky, and he's top 10 for around the green stuff. Keith Mitchell, again, the ball striking just very, very good for the last 6 weeks. Something close to that. All high finishes in his last number of finishes. So his last was that 7th, 18th, second, 12th, 18th. Those are his last five starts on the PGA Tour. These are his round one scores, and then I'll shut up. 61 last week, 64 the week before, 64, 64, 65. Those were his round one starts and those five starts. Just absolutely ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically a Hall of Fame golfer with his round one scoring average. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and by the way, he's got a third and an eighth here. Now, this is a number of years ago, 2021 and 2019, but obviously can handle the course and is comfortable with it.
Now, looking at Keith Mitchell and moving on to our next segment, we'll see his name in this next segment. It's looking at what a certain set of industry projections, not our projections, but other projections in the PGA DFS industry. And if you look at these projections, you can pretty much tell who's going to be higher owned than they are in the large field GPPs, in high dollar contests, small field GPPs, contests where pros play. So what you can do, how you can take advantage of this information if you're playing in smaller contests where pros are not playing, less than $3 on DraftKings or FanDuel, you can play these guys in most of your lineups and maybe 5 out of the 6 spots and know that you're probably going to be in a pretty decent spot. Now, if you're playing in higher dollar contests against pros, you should understand that if you're considering playing these guys, they will be higher owned than you think they will be. So, Nero, if we look ahead to this week, to the PGA Championship on Monday, who do we expect to be higher owned based on these projections on DraftKings and FanDuel in high dollar GPPs?
Yeah, so no surprise. I've got three across both DraftKings and FanDuel, and that's Rory, Bryson, and then Mackenzie Hughes. We've already talked extensively about Rory and Bryson, so I don't think that's any surprise that they will both be higher owned in high stakes contests. Mackenzie Hughes, especially because he lost in a playoff last week in the alternate event in Myrtle Beach. Pretty underpriced this week relative to his betting odds. So again, not really a surprise that we would see him in there. So those three across both sites now. And DraftKings specifically, adding to those three, add Keith Mitchell, John Rahm, and JJ Spawn. And then on FanDuel, add to Rory, Bryson, and Mackenzie Hughes, Scotty Scheffler, Joaquin Neiman, Maverick McNeely, Keegan Bradley, and Justin Thomas. So no surprise on FanDuel, as we talk about almost every week. Scheffler, Rory, and Bryson, the three at the top of the price range are going to be more owned in those high stakes contests because FanDuel's pricing scheme lends itself to more easily putting together lineups that include those players at the top end of the salary range.
Really good stuff there, Nero. And if you guys hear the background noise, I don't know if you can, but my doorbell is ringing. We're going to ignore that. We're going to continue through with the PGA Championship talk here for you guys. Nero, good stuff there on the ownership in higher stakes GBPs. Now let's move on and see what the betting markets are telling us as of Monday afternoon. Now, we don't have our patented trifecta plays yet. That will not be until Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening in our daily plug and in our Discord server. But Nero, what I did, I took a look at odds as of Sunday night at some sharp sports books, and then we track that. We track it over the course of the week, but right now we're just tracking it through Monday afternoon. And one thing we have to keep in mind here is that PGA Championship odds have been out for a while. We believe, and our numbers have shown that tracking it Sunday night after the most recent event is the best way to capture line moves for majors. So Nero, we don't have any full trifecta plays just yet, but we have three guys that have moved at multiple sharp sports books already. It's only been about, 18 hours or so. Who are those three guys, and what are your thoughts on them?
Well, one again, not a surprise, Bryson. So we've talked about him enough. We don't need to talk about him anymore. Tommy Fleetwood and Sam Burns are the other two. So Tommy Fleetwood often fits under the ball striking robot category, so you can cover that square on your bingo card if you need to. Very good ball striking stats, especially this year, and some good around the green work, which you don't usually see from Fleetwood. And then Sam Burns, kind of the epitome of a bomber who can putt and then is not as good with his irons. But if there's any course where that can be helpful, it would be this one where that kind of profile could kind of sneak up on people. He was 13th here last year, and his last been kind of sneaky. You haven't heard much about him. His last three starts are 30th, 5th, and 13th, and he was only 30th last week because he shot 73 on Sunday. Like he was much higher starting the day on Sunday and just kind of dropped down the leaderboard with that 73. He shoots 69 or something there, and his results read like 15, 5, 13 in his last three starts. So can definitely understand why those three have caught some of the early heat in the betting markets.
And we're going to keep tracking that throughout the week, and we'll see if we get a handful of guys or a large number of guys. Generally, that tells us if the field is wide open or the top golfers have a better chance of winning. So we'll track that throughout the week. Make sure you check back in our daily plug when Nero where he posts his top plays and his lineup construction tips and his course breakdown. That's posted Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. And then Wednesday afternoon, he comes in and gives you an official betting odds update, entire market analysis. So make sure you go check that out if you're a member of OccupyFantasy.com. And then Wednesday evening, I'll post the final official trifecta list. Guys that have moved at every sportsbook that we tracked, their odds to win have improved at every sportsbook. Highly predictive list. I'll post that Wednesday night. Now, Nero, let's look at showdown and weather notes here for the PGA Championship. Is there any weather advantages to be had here for this event? We've had weather waves in the past. Do we think that there's anything we can look at for this event? Is the forecast telling us anything for the PGA Championship?
I didn't see anything wind wise on Thursday and Friday. It looks like it's relatively even across the waves. Definitely should be noted. I believe, as you said earlier, like it's pouring rain at the golf course as we speak here on a Monday afternoon, early evening. Looks like they're going to get some more rain potentially on Wednesday. I don't know if that's going to be overnight or Wednesday morning. After that, it looks fairly dry for the remaining days. The only note I have that for people to pay attention to is that it does look like there's an interesting forecast on Sunday. So Sunday until about noon looks like there's going to be very calm and nice conditions, not a lot of wind. But then Sunday afternoon, it looks like the wind picks up quite a bit, and you've got gusts in the 20 to 30 mile an hour range. So who knows? Obviously, this far in advance, like wind forecast 7 days in advance, like get out of here on its accuracy. But you should absolutely pay attention to it because if that materializes, you're going to want to factor that into your showdown builds on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. And we don't think about that as much for Showdown. Obviously, we talk about this in a classic sense for classic lineups, but again, there's 4 rounds of Showdown. Those contests are bigger than normal during major weeks as well. And our Showdown model is updated every evening for round 1 through round 4. So make sure you check that out again if you are a member of Occupy Fantasy. Nero, now, this is the segment, the final segment that people have asked for. And I think it'll be a great exercise to show how we would hand build a single entry DFS lineup for GPPs. And Nero, I just want to get your thought really quickly. I think people should definitely understand this, right? There are going to be people out there who are entering one or two lineups in the lotto contest, and obviously that our recommendation is not to do that. But again, take one or two shots at $1 million. We're not going to be the ones to argue against you there. But this exercise here, Nero, I would argue that people who are building in small field GPPs, people who are building single entry lineups, smaller contests, this is the type of way. If you don't have access to our lineup builder, you don't have access to projections, this is the best type of way, and these are the best types of contests to use this strategy for. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm going to make a quick plug for the fourth round, the final round showdown model for Occupy. It's just been smoking hot this year. I am usually go into hibernation, refuse to play showdown because I have enough invested in the classic contest across all the sites. But the fourth round showdown model has been so good that has brought me out of my final round hibernation. I've been playing a lot more fourth round showdown this year. So
There we go.
quick little plug for that. Um, Okay, so now I'm so focused on the plug. Give me my question again for the lineup construction.
Yeah, so as we're hand building this lineup, we're showing people how to build it. Obviously, people are going to put one or two lineups in the large contest, but this exercise that we're doing next here as we build a lineup here on the video, this is the best way to build. If you don't have access to a lineup builder or an
Yes.
optimizer or Sims or whatever, this is the best way to hand build smaller field, single entry GPP type of lineups, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the way that I started building, or at least I'll go through, kind of my stuff for how I started building. You can, obviously throw your thoughts in there as well. I don't do as much hand building today. I mean, I still do some, but mostly I'm balancing allocations and in lineup generators and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think one way that I like to start if we want to get started would be just like trying to figure out like what is the cheapest player that I'm comfortable using in this contest. And to truly answer that question, you need to first of all answer what type of contest are you building this line for?
Yeah, so let's just say we're building one of the 500 player single entry GPPs, maybe even a 100 player contest on FanDuel. I would say less than 1,000 players here, single entry. And in that sense, that the answer to this question is going to be different than if we're building 20 or 150 lineups. Because Nero, in that, we're looking at the guys and we're letting the lineup builder run, and we're maybe putting some exposures in, but we're going to be having access to cheaper guys there who are much riskier because we're looking to
Yes.
get that big payday. Whereas here, we're looking for floor. 6 out of 6 is obviously very important in all contests, but we can get that in a smaller contest. It really locks up our floor and our ceiling. So we may, for like 1% owned guys, we'll be much more willing to play those and keep them in our player pool for the larger contests. But we may not dip down to 1% owned guys in a smaller field hand built lineup.
100%, 100%. So in this example, you're gonna, ask me that question. I think the cheapest guy I'd be comfortable using and one of, again, something I would consider to be a little bit smaller, sub 1,000 entries would be Keith Mitchell at 6,200 on DraftKings. And I think we've already talked about Keith and the reasons why he's a solid play this week.
Perfect. I love that. Let's put in Keith Mitchell into this lineup. And Nero, maybe on your side, since you don't have access to my screen, you can follow along here as we're building a
Yeah,
lineup with
I'll follow along.
Keith
Yep.
Mitchell. And again, maybe you think I want to go a little bit cheaper, right? We talked about Mackenzie Hughes as an industry sharper play. Maybe we could drop down to Mackenzie Hughes at 5,600. That's up to you if you're hand building this lineup. Now, Nero, the one point we make here is we're building for ownership as well. Mitchell will be popular at this price tag. He's an industry tagged play. He's been hot. So as we know, we have a cheaper guy who's popular. We're gonna have to balance that out at some point with a lower owned guy at some other price range.
Yeah, that's again one of my favorite strategies would be then to, grab a lower owned, more expensive player. By the way, it doesn't mean that we can't have a Scheffler or McIlroy or DeChambeau on this lineup, but we can certainly grab a lower owned, higher priced guy to balance out the ownership we have on Mitchell.
For sure. So let's do that now. First of all, I think we look at the top, right? Scheffler, Roy, Bryson. You probably want one of those three in your smaller field GPPs. We look at Bryson second in the model. Nero, he has the early market move, may end up as that trifecta play. And I think for people looking, another angle we look at here, there's a couple things. Who's the cheapest guy? Next is who are these overlap plays? Who are guys that the model likes that industry projections like, that the betting markets are telling us. In your Wednesday update, who are getting some odds moves as well, who's written up in the daily plug. Bryson checks the box in a couple here, so let's just put Bryson into our lineup. That makes our decision easy for the top, and then we can go in and play a lower owned guy. Now, we don't have any ownership projections just yet as a Monday afternoon, but Nero, if you had to maybe suggest a guy who may be lower owned in the 9K or higher range that we could stick in here to balance up that ownership.
That's a good one. Well, one we've talked about, which would be Joaquin Neiman
Yep.
at 9,600. I think he could make a lot of sense. I'm not sure where Cantlay is going to end up. What are your thoughts on his popularity?
It's a great question. And again, we don't even have an early set of ownership projections just yet,
We're,
so it's a
we're
little
guessing. We're
difficult. We're
guessing.
guessing. So let's just, you know what? Let's just go with Neiman. Let's assume he's lower owned, and then let's say our
I think
ownership.
he will be because obviously the live factor plus Cantlay's been playing well, so I think he's a little bit more top of mind. He's a more popular player anyway, so I think we definitely will get a ownership discount on Neiman.
Perfect. So that has us Keith Mitchell, Bryson DeChambeau, Joaquin Neiman for our hand-built single entry GPP lineup. So that leaves us around $7,500 left per player. Nero, I think what you or I generally do here now is let's go below that 7,500 mark and let's see who sticks out under 7,500. Maybe 7K to 7,500. Any player that sticks out as we've talked about them so far, they're a great course fit, early odds moves, anybody in that range. It could be a little lower, a little higher, maybe.
Yeah, it's one that's a little bit higher is one that we just talked about with that early move is Sam
Yep.
Burns, and again, I think he'll be okay for popularity, but I don't think he'll be crazy. Maybe he's 10% or just, I think the main thing would be he's probably going to be sub 15%,
Yep.
and that's probably what's most important. So he would definitely look good to me, as someone that you could stick in this lineup.
So there we go. So we've hit guys who have looked good in the model. We've hit guys who've had some early market moves. And again, as you're building Wednesday night, when you should wait and to build, these early market moves turn into who are the trifecta plays, who are getting odds moves at actual sports books. We got Bryson, who looks good across the board. Neiman, top play in the model should be lower owned. That leaves us 7,500 left per player. We'll probably one guy below 75, one guy above 75. So Nero, let's see here. I'm looking now. I'm looking the low 7K range. There isn't really anyone we've talked about just yet. Digging down a little deeper, still not many guys in that 6K range. Anyone stand out to you? I can throw a name out there as well, but if you see anyone that sticks out to you, let me know.
We do. One that sticks out, but we don't need to use him. So I don't even know that I like him a ton this week, but is Andrew Novak at 6,600. I've been playing, extremely well. But if we did add Novak, then I think we would have to make sure that ever that last player was less popular because I think Novak has a chance to be a little bit more popular. I agree with you. I think the 7K range is a little dead. One that's interesting to me is Cam Young at 7,100. Very quietly, top 10 last week. I think he was tied ninth with the aforementioned Keith Mitchell, actually, at the Truist. Good, very good course fit. Will not be popular because he has not been playing, very, very good golf. But if you need someone who's lower on that ownership range and who has sneaky good week last week that might be able to build on that and is obviously a good course fit with how far he hits the ball. He's interesting to me at 7,100. So there's a couple. I'm not sure which way you want to go, but you can make the choice.
Yeah, let's go with Cam Young, right? Let's assume he's on the lower owned angle, and you have a subjective reason to play him there. That pretty much frees us up to play whoever we want. Ownership shouldn't really factor in too much into our final roster spot. That's $7,900. So we got Fox, Tom Kim, Maverick McNeely, Siwoo Kim, Max Homa, and Nero. As we're looking at the information that we've given people so far in this show, again, if you're a member of OccupyFantasy.com, you have the model, you have the line builder, you have the daily plug. But if people out there are just using this video, who's someone in this range that we've talked about so far? It is Maverick McNeely, who industry projections are tagging as a sharper play, and his ownership might be a little elevated here. So we could fit in Maverick McNeely at $7,800. That leaves us $100 left over. That is perfectly fine. And assuming by Wednesday ownership lines up, something like that could be a very reasonable small field GPP lineup using all the tools that we have so far. Again, this is Monday. Just to reiterate, this is Monday. But if you perform this exercise on Wednesday with your hand built lineup, Nero, people will have a lot of success. Not just this week, and maybe not this week, right? It's a game filled with variance. But if you put this exercise together every week of the PGA DFS season, you will have some GPP wins.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the hardest thing, one of the hard thing, there's multiple hard things with DFS, but one of the hardest things is staying consistent with your process when you have to eat a bunch of losses. And if you're doing PGA DFS, you know, often you are eating losses for weeks in a row because there's so much variance in the game of golf, and then you're tacking on top of it the variance of the game of DFS. But this is a very solid approach to hand building single entry lineups, and if you follow it consistently for the year, you're absolutely going to have a spike week or two where you have a really high finish following this process.
Absolutely. And Nero, just to be clear, like let's just say we get to this last point, the final two spots, and we're not really thrilled with these two guys. We can go back and let's say take out Neiman or take out Bryson and drop down to a
Yes.
cheaper guy and then move back up. That's something you and I both do. And again, you're not tied into the first four guys you put into your lineup. You can always go back and modify them.
Yeah, 100%. You know, you're making decisions as you go, and so I don't like personally. I would probably take Berger in that spot at 7,900 because he's been playing so well. But maybe I didn't like that, and I was like, "Ah, I still like that Mitchell DeChambeau combination. So what if I take out Neiman? So I pop Neiman out, and now I've got 8,800 left for my last two spots. Now one of those guys still needs to be lower owned. Okay, so I could do that. Lowry's there at 9,200. Fleetwood we've talked about, right, 9,100. So you could grab one of those and then see what you're left with. You do Fleetwood and now you got 8,400 left for that, and you could have a Corey Connors or Sung J M or even Cam Smith if you're live inclined. But either way, the point is, you can take one of those pieces out of your Jenga puzzle and then kind of recalibrate if you don't like what you're left with in that last spot.
And here's the thing, 8,300 left or 8,400 left, you can complete your bingo card because you could do Niromada loves Patrick Reed in a major at 8,100, and now you got bingo here for
I
the
didn't
PGA
want to say
Championship.
it. I didn't want to say it because I knew you were going to come back at me with that, but you're correct. I actually would have taken Patrick Reed in that spot and then gone up from there.
Well, there you go. See, we know each other here. We've been doing these videos far too long, working together far too long that we know the golfers that each other like. So that'll do it for this video. Appreciate everyone sticking around to the very end. Let us know what you thought about this video. Drop a comment below. If you have any questions about your PGA Championship lineups, drop it below. Questions about players or lineup tips, contest tips. We'll gladly answer the question. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That is a free way to support our channel and our shows. Plus, it lets you know whenever we post these PGA videos every single week. If you want the easiest free way to support the channel, just give us a thumbs up. We also appreciate that. Now, if you've been watching this video and you're like, damn, I need all of the information I can from you guys, check out OccupyFantasy.com, our model that we've talked about that ranks every single golfer for the entire slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Niromada will write his daily plug. That is a written article at OccupyFantasy.com where he gives his best plays for the PGA Championship, and he does this every single week. He breaks down the course, talks about the weather, and then my favorite part of the plug, his lineup construction tips. Whether you're playing on DraftKings or FanDuel, whatever contest type you're playing in, he gives specific information on how to build lineups for that week. Then Wednesday afternoon, he comes in, gives his betting market update analysis, and then Wednesday evenings in Discord, I'll post our final trifecta plays for the betting markets. Whew, Nero, I think we're done here. I appreciate you taking the time to do this video. Any final thoughts here on the PGA Championship?
Yeah, well, now we shouldn't do this on Mondays because now I'm too excited, and now I got to wait all the way until Thursday morning before lock. So
Yeah,
this is it's not going to be good. But yeah, no, it's good stuff. I do like getting an early start and getting the breakdown out early. But yeah, should be a good week. I like having the course history this week. Like let's get some, or somebody who's watching this or in the comments get a big win and share it with the crew. It'd be great.
absolutely. So for Nero, I'm Brian. Thank you everyone for listening. Good luck and enjoy the PGA Championship.